Why did so many Soviets die in World War II? Imagine a country fighting a war on its own soil, facing an enemy that shows no mercy. That was the reality for the Soviet Union during World War II. The huge loss of life was staggering, with about 27 million people killed. This includes both soldiers and civilians. So why did so many Soviets lose their lives? Let's break it down. First, the fighting on the Eastern Front was intense and massive. The Soviet Union faced the full force of Nazi Germany's invasion. The Germans launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, aiming to conquer the Soviet lands. The battles that followed, like the Siege of Leningrad and the Battle of Stalingrad, were brutal and lasted 4 years. The Soviet military suffered around 8.7 million casualties, reflecting how deadly and exhausting the fighting was. Second, civilians paid a heavy price. The Germans committed many war crimes, including massacres and mass executions. They targeted groups like Jews, Poles, Ukrainians, and Belarusians in systematic campaigns of extermination. Widespread famine and disease also spread because there were destroyed farms, infrastructure, and food supplies. Many civilians died from starvation, illness, or violence during occupation. The Nazi regime's policies made life extremely dangerous for ordinary people. Third, internal hardships added to the death toll. Under Joseph Stalin's rule, many people faced repression, forced labor, and deportations. During the war, about 1 million people died in labor camps called Gulags. Overcrowding, hunger, and harsh conditions made survival even harder. These internal struggles made the human cost of the war even higher for the Soviet population. Fourth, the harsh climate and environment made fighting more deadly. The Soviet soldiers and civilians endured freezing winters, shortages of supplies, and relentless combat. The Soviet strategy often involved launching large-scale offensives that resulted in high casualties. They believed that absorbing losses was necessary to push back the Germans and win the war. Finally, the vast size of the Soviet Union meant that much of the fighting took place right on their land. Cities, villages, and farms were destroyed or occupied. Civilians were caught in the crossfire, subjected to bombings, massacres, and forced evacuations. The sheer scale of the war across the country increased the number of deaths. In summary, the high number of Soviet casualties came from the fierce battles on the Eastern Front, the atrocities committed by Nazi forces, internal repression, and the brutal conditions of war. The Soviet Union's sacrifice was enormous, and their loss reflects how devastating this conflict was for their people.